Hello, I'm Pastor Joe, and I want to welcome you to Impacts. Impacts is a video teaching series where I try to help nurture your faith in, your commitment to, and your relationship with Jesus Christ. You know, some church buildings are really large, and some are real small. Some are very ornate, and others are quite plain. I have seen churches that will virtually mesmerize you with their beauty, and I've seen a couple of churches that honestly, when you look at them, you say, what in the world were these people thinking when they built this? But none of that really matters, because the buildings are not the churches. The church is really the people of God. In this series, we are looking at a passage from the second chapter of Acts that lays out some of the key aspects, key ministries of what defines a church. So come on, let's get started. You know, in the language we use, we often speak of going to church. What we really mean is we're going to the building, where God's people gather. To be more accurate, we should be saying that we are going to be the church, because the church is not the building. The church is the people of God. It is the people of God gathering together to be about those things that God has called us to do. When we look at Acts chapter 2, verses 42 through 47, we get an outline of the ministries that the church is called to undertake. And it's important that we understand that. Last week, we began by looking at Christian education or spiritual development, becoming disciples, and how important it is that we nurture our faith. Well, we're going to kind of pick up there and then go to the next section. And when we're reading in verse 42, we read that they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and fellowship and to the breaking of bread. When we see that they devoted themselves to fellowship and the breaking of bread, what does that really mean? Well, certainly when we read of breaking of bread, it brings to our minds images of the Lord's Supper. But really here, we ought to read it for what it is. It is eating together. Later on in this section, we read where they are sharing food together, eating the meals together in their homes. So they are devoting themselves to fellowship and to eating together. Being the body of Christ and engage in these activities are important. See, this is a young, emerging Christian community, and they knew the value of spending time together, of getting to know one another, of building that sense of trust, and of living together, and so that they can encourage one another and laugh with one another and experience life together. And we need to read and understand the whole idea of fellowship, not as idle activities in the church, not just as fun things that the church may do, but as an essential part of the ministry of the church. Now, in my 20 plus years of working in churches, virtually every church I have come across intentionally schedules and plans fellowship activities. They could be covered dish suppers. It could be a catered meal. It could be a day at the park in a cookout, or it could be a day at the beach or the lake. It could be ice cream socials or a concert or a hymn sing. There is absolutely no shortage of ideas for fellowship activities for the life of the church. But again, they are important. They are intentional times of being together. See, the church is the people. It is the body of Christ. And to be the body of Christ, we need to be together. So here's my challenge to you. I want you to take a look at what your church is engaged in terms of fellowship activities. It could be refreshments between services of worship. It could be refreshments after worship. It could be special dinners and meals or whatnot. But take a look at them and then see what of those things are you involved in. Because that is where you get to know one another. That is where new friendships are forged and old ones are strengthened. It is where the various ages within the church come together and get to know one another by spending time together. It's where you really get to laugh with one another and experience the joy of the community. It's also where you get to shed tears together and journey through life's most difficult moments. But you need to be involved. So look at what your church offers and look at how you are involved. Well, I do thank you for joining me this week for the Impact video. I hope that you will plan to join me next week for the next installment. I encourage you to subscribe to my YouTube channel and click on the notification icon so that any new video that I post, you get notified and alerted to. Until we get together next week, I pray that God's blessings will be with you.